All right, so today is all about finding your own stride. Yes, that stride. Now, the trick to finding the stride is finding that appropriate length in between each step. If your stride is too short, you end up shuffling. If your stride is too long, you end up leaping. Now, from my experience, it seems that it's not more or less the shortness of the stride, it's taking too long of a stride. I won't get too technical in this video, but when we walk with a longer stride, it often is accompanied by having a heavy heel. Now, keep in mind, when you're walking, your heel will touch the ground. There's nothing wrong with that. But the main thing that I want you to take away from this is that our feet are sensory structures, and it is the way that we are able to communicate what happens on the ground upstream. And there's something about walking with this heavy heel that creates this sudden, violent impact that causes a lot of upstream issues. And if we don't keep this in check, it leads to pain and injury, which is what we don't want. So how do we find the appropriate length of our stride? Here's what you do. Take your shoes and socks off and walk around the house feeling your own stride that you have right now. Once you've done that for a few minutes, then what I want you to do is take a stride that's too short. Mess around with that, feel it out. What does it say to you? And then do a stride that's too long and mess around and see how that feels. What I want you to notice is that when you take a short stride, it's more of a shuffle and it kind of stunts the momentum. And when you lead with a long stride, it often feels clunky, wonky. You're going to notice the heaviness of the steps. You're even going to hear the heaviness of the steps. This is maybe where we're finding those heavy steps. What I want you to do is think of your heels when they make contact with the ground as like a cue ball gliding across a pool table. It's light, it's gentle, it's quiet. You're basically trying to reduce the amount of force that you're bringing to the ground through the heel because the rest of the foot has to be able to bounce off the ground. And if we drive too hard with the heel, it ends up jamming up the body and basically puts up too much pressure into the joints of the body, be it the hips, knees, or the ankles. This has actually been studied in runners as well, and what they found was that when these rear foot strikers, so the people that are striking real heavy in the heels, they end up taking about 3 times the amount of pressure in their joints, and it's absorbed in the skeletal system, not in the muscles where it needs to be. And what I would love for you to experiment is finding a stride that's comfortable for you. And some people, you may have to shorten it up a bit. Some people may have to lengthen it a bit. But the whole thing is that you found it when you get this sense of ease of movement, the sense of gliding through the actual space that you're walking through. Now, the next part of what we're going to focus on is how the rest of the foot makes contact with the ground after the heel glides. You don't want your foot collapsing too heavily on the inside, and you don't want your foot collapsing too heavy on the outside. Now, again, from what I have seen is that we have the tendency to walk more on the inside edge of the foot, so on that big toe side. The guys at GOTA call this inside ankle bone low. And they would vehemently oppose the fact of the inside ankle bone falling low. They think that's dangerous. I tend to agree with them. And so basically what you want is the entire foot pad to make even contact with the ground and allow the foot to release its momentum in a safe and effective manner. When we're able to control all of the forefoot, it allows this inside ankle bone to come up naturally and not fall too heavy on the inside. The main idea is to, again, slow down, observe your walk, take your stride into account, make sure that heel is going ever so lightly on the ground, not jabbing into the floor. This makes for easeful movement. And a funny side story is that There was this time many years ago where my wife would make this joke when I was walking around the house and my footsteps were too heavy. She would say, "Hey, I heard there was an elephant in the room. Have you seen it?" And at the time, it is funny. It was funny. But deep down inside, I thought to myself, I don't want to have heavy footsteps. And so I've always, since that point, really worked at being graceful with my steps. Now, the last final point here to keep in mind is not only the stride length, but the stride width. And so not having your feet so far apart, which has become very prevalent in the society. And what you'll notice is the wider and wider the feet get, the more and more the body turns into a waddle. And it's because it's not able to grab the momentum of each step the way that we are supposed to. It's gotten too far away from the center of the spinal column, which works in cohesion with the actual steps themselves. Now, there's a ton of reasons we could blame it for. We can just say it's the sedentary lifestyle. We can say that it's being more obese. We could say that it's doing lifts with a wide base and loading tons of weight. There's a ton of things that we can talk about here. But the point of the matter is that it makes more sense to keep the feet closer underneath the bones of the hips. And I'll show you right here, it wouldn't make much sense to go outside of that when we are a ball and socket joint sort of moving mechanism. So to wrap this all up, when we're working with our stride length, we don't want it too long, too short. We want to be able to glide with the heel and let the rest of the foot make even contact with the floor, generating momentum for each step that's coming next. We're also making sure that the feet aren't too wide outside of the center spinal column so that we're making sure that we're using the momentum of each step efficiently. All right, so the series is almost done. We only got a couple of videos left, but if you found this of any use whatsoever, please like, comment, subscribe, share. Anything helps out this channel. And on a final note, if there is something particular that you found useful from this series, from this particular video, I'd love it if you comment down below what that was. All that stuff really helps. Any feedback really helps, good or bad. I'll hear it out. All right, so that's it for today's video. Happy walking.